G'day punters, welcome back to the Punters Academy. John Walter from racingwatch.com.au. G'day, how are you?
Good, mate. We're both standing, both athletes today. We're giving the chairs away. Holy heck.
Yeah, doing the old standing desk, indeed. John's got a bit of a crook back.
Yeah, if I start swearing, it's the same. It's definitely, it wasn't a good day on Saturday, but it wasn't as bad as if I start into Tourette's mode. It's definitely my back.
Fair enough. We're going to review the Randwick meeting from Saturday. Look, we had 10 races there, John, as we do on a Saturday, and the track was given out as an official 5, and then they upgraded it to a 4 post race 7. So races 8, 9 and 10 were on the official 4. I'm saying that in terms of the course proper races, it was 4.2, so pretty close. And the shoot races were slower, and they sort of came out of that at 5.3. So
they upgraded it just in time to a 4 to get to the slower part of the meeting for the last 3. But no, pretty close. Isn't that weird? Why would they even? They very rarely do it, and why would they do it at race 7? Is it just after those like violently fast 2-run races they've sort of reacted to the times, I guess, and decided to upgrade it?
We're talking about the 2600 and the 1800, of course, who in both of those races, fast tempo, solid tempo. So, yeah, possibly that might have been the reason. So, given up trying to work out what they do or why they do what they do, we'll just go along with what we know it is and go from there. Look, in the highway in the first, John, they went out sort of average early and then sort of below average, slowed down a bit between the 8 and the 4. In fact, a big slowdown of 4.9 lengths. So that meant that by the time they got to the 600, it was sort of a below average tempo. Nothing special here in the highway numbers, do you think?
No, and we sort of just talked before, probably the pattern. I thought it was a little bit easier to make ground sort of towards the inside, a bit more like a traditional Rose Hill sort of setup than Randwick, where the 6 metre rail sort of makes sense, where if you were sort of towards the inside, you seem to be able to make ground easier in the straight, and sort of if you got off a few in the straight, that didn't harm you. It was just hard to sort of come from back and wide, and Bootscooter's back sort of in the middle section, wide with cover. So it's one of the few horses to run on all day from that sort of position. The horse that runs seconds in the middle there, Listomania, I still don't know why they keep the earmuffs on here, and I think it probably cost this horse the race. Certainly had every chance in the run, but for fast forward it to a more vital part, as it is a pretty nothing race. Sort of here, once it sort of gets clear with the big earmuffs on, it seems to float a bit there. And once boot scooting comes up alongside of it, definitely sort of sticks its head back out and responds once it sees it. So I'm saying the earmuffs probably cost the second horse the victory, and it looked like it actually won to me just about. And the third horse was a good run, Optimo. I think it needs shorter. Pretty ordinary ride, got sort of checked at the wrong time and finished off quite well. All things considered, this is Optimo back towards the inside here, just getting checked there, losing all momentum. Never looked like winning the race, but ran on well. I think back to 1,200 metres, it's dangerous, but that's all I had from this race.
Well, it certainly gave those horses back in the field their chance to sort of make cheap ground in that section between the 8 and the 4. In terms of the run of the race, I suppose late sectionals, Optimo ran the best race sectional. Late the last 200 metres, it probably had some excuses, sort of went back to the inside, had to come around hills. But yeah, not much of a race here for me.
The winner is very well set up, and he's done a good job this prep. He's probably the one that's peaked on his prep, and Optimo peak-ish, and so is Listomania. They can probably both be very competitive in a similar race next time out. I don't know if this guy's graduated yet. He's probably still eligible for 1 or 2 more.
Which one? The second horse you're talking about?
Yeah, Bootscooter. I think is that his 3rd win or his 4th win?
No, that Bootscooter's win. Okay, so that's his 3rd win.
3rd, yeah. So he can win 1 more, but he'll get up in the weights, and he's been up a while now, whereas the others are a little bit more upward spiral this prep.
Yeah, the second horse, as you mentioned, is eligible for probably easier races still. So yeah, we'll wait and see. Look, I don't have much to say about the race. Never really keen on these at all. So race 2, we'll move on to that. The 72, which really is probably more of a midweek race, but anyway, they call it a Saturday race. Slow pace here, John. Colino looked like it was well suited. in the race in terms of the way it was run, and got the job done well enough and went to a new peak for it. I would say a slight peak anyway. Timpanus, it had a bit of a, it was held up a bit, wasn't it? And do you think it was unlucky?
Actually, like the first time watching it live, I thought it was a moral beat. There's a few things about this race which are very scary. Obviously, the very slow tempo. I think if it sort of had got the winner's run, Timpanus certainly would have won the race. It's more of a building, not a sit sprinter, whereas the winner, I think, sort of a 1,200-1,400 metre horse that just lucked a very slowly run race. And like a big warning sign for me is when the jockey sort of eases them, how quick they stop. And this horse basically stopped to a walk on him in 2 strides. So I think it was very lucky here, Colino. All things considered, just got the perfect spot, sprinted up a couple of furlongs. The ones in front of it are obviously, sort of one pace types, probably not suited, even though they've controlled the speed. And it didn't allow the ones behind it to get into the race. And Timpanus is the only horse nearby that could sort of do it. And as you said, sort of held up and had excuses. I don't think deficit's much good. I think this is sort of as good as he goes. I'd be more inclined to be negative on the winner and scared of this race than anything.
Yeah. I've got nothing much to say about it. Probably, second, third worst race in the day.
This is what worries me. So it stretches and sprints nicely, which sort of shows me that it's like a sharp horse, and just hate when he drops his hands late. How quickly he sort of pulls up like there. It's just like that's it. That's sort of a warning sign to me that it didn't have much more to give. So that soft section allowed him to sort of sprint, do his job, and if they ran it again, he might be in trouble.
Yeah, he ran decent time for the race. The third race, the midway, Pandora Blue got the job done there, John. Bit of a bunch finish there towards the end, and McCormack, and it was held up a bit. Moralist maybe as well. Not much to say, is there? Yeah.
I think this is a pretty plain, like you say, what you see is what you get. I agree here. Pandora Blue, very well set up, very fit. The two leaders just carved each other enough to give it the soft sit behind, and very smart. Didn't sort of go early with them. Allowed them to, it's just in the perfect spot. Didn't do too much chasing, even though they're going at a solid tempo up front. Hits the front at the right time and falls in. No knock on the winner. That's just the sort of horse it is. This is how it wins races, through its racing pattern and being able to absorb a bit of pressure and kick on. It's got nothing special, great turn of foot or flashiness, but it's when it's hard fit and it's up on speed, it's going to win races on you. And like I said, the horse is coming from the back, like McCormack, and I think that's Just Field sort of gets out late, and there's another one. So Moralist, they've all had their chance. These horses are take-turn horses. These midways are similar to that last. It's a Wednesday race run on a Saturday.
Indeed, and pace was average from there, so there's really not much to say, is there? I mean, you got.
I think like that form will just, those sorts of horses take turns. That's not a bad midway. Sometimes you find a really bad midway that you want to really pick apart. It's not a bad midway, so that form will hold up in midway grade, but nothing standout that was really flashing light for next time, and nothing that I could really say was completely flattered or anything. I think what we saw is what we got. Yep,
fair enough. Okay, let's move on to race 4, the 3-year-old 72, and below average tempo here. John, Rebel Shadow got the job done in a tight finish. Once again, bunch finish. What do you got? 5 horses there finishing within a length of the winner. Could have called it anyway, I suppose. The last bit, Rebel Shadow did run the second best last 400 sectional rating and the best last 200 sectional rating of the day, or the meeting, I should say. But pace assisted, I suppose, early.
Oh, I hate this horse. I backed it last start when it ran off the track, and then this race, I thought D-Horn Unicorn had owned the race from the front and sort of got bluffed out of the lead there early, and then he sat off and handed this Bitcoin Baby the soft lead. And D-Horn Unicorn is just not a horse with any sort of turn of foot. He's a grinder, and he just played into the hands of the horses behind. Pakari Kari is probably the disappointing one, sort of flushed early and got a bit keen and had nothing left to give in the finish. Pretty wild. We can see there in behind in the black colours is pulling pretty hard, and Rebel Shadow, probably well ridden after last start when, we saw the open spaces there. It went to the outside fence. So to stay in amongst horses and cuddle him up and find a passage late. You could only say it was a good ride. Probably a bit lucky there. The bump from Bitcoin Babies opened the gap for him. What do you do with the race? I've got no idea. They went so slow. I'd just be penning the race from a form perspective and treating it as pretty much a barrier trial for most of them.
Well, Pokari was coughing post race, so maybe an excuse for it, and it's going to have to be scoped now. So look, I think that it was a bit overrated coming off that Gosford win. We talked about that race, I think, in one of the shows. I can't remember which one it was, but
someone asked a question, didn't they? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was. Someone asked a question about whether it was some sort of the next Winks, and the reality is that race for me at Gosford was not much better than an average 64. So anyway,
it's favored, isn't it? Yeah, like I think we actually pretty much nailed it. We thought it'd open up very short. Not saying it couldn't win wherever it went, but that the early markets would probably be really aggressive, and it was very soft on race day.
Definite forgive though. Definite
yep.
Forgive. Okay, coming into race 5, the 1800 fillies and mares, below average tempo here, John. The second horse, well, Niffler seemed a bit disappointing, I suppose, on face value, but it did pull up mildly lame. The second horse, Come Bellafield, it ran a nice race and ran on well and finished off the race very strongly. But once again, what do you say about these? My God, how does that Flexible continue to hold its spot in the market like it does? I just don't know.
Insane. I actually backed the second horse here, and like watching them, I'm just screaming. In about 200 meters, it starts pulling and runs up the backside of the winner. I think you never want to be too harsh on apprentices, but and especially like what I'm sort of commanding of him here. But he gets so keen, and there's no outside leader positions there. Here he is here just checking, and the horse gets keen for like 500 meters. I think he just was so wrapped up in beating Niffler that he forgot that there are others in the race here, and he just sort of rides the race to beat Niffler and forgot about the winner, who's just a nightmare of a friggin' horse. It's got no real ability. It's a bit like Pandora Blue. It's got that little bit of speed, kicks on, and it's won like 4 races now by narrow margins. It's just a punish of a creature. Nothing sweet about me, but not if you own it. I think the second horse should have won. I think the ride was pretty ordinary, but forgiving because it's an apprentice. If it was an experienced jockey, I think they would have taken off and put it in the race a lot earlier and would have won easy.
Well, I suppose he has won 2 out of 3 this prep.
Nothing sweet about me.
No, Reece Jones.
On the win. It's not a 0 out of 10 ride. I just think a more experienced rider would have noticed how slow they were going and just taken off like either mid-race or put it in the race sort of 200 metres before, not just worried about beating the one horse in front of them, understanding the ones in front had it so soft they had to kick on,
Agreed. Should have won, and the horse is absolutely flying. I mean, interestingly, they when they raced it over 2400 twice last prep, there might have been a couple of excuses for it in some of those races. I think it got dragged back in one of them, and tempo was against it in another one, but it rated well down. So I don't know if they're going to try and do that again this prep, or whether they might just sort of get it up to the 2,000 metres and try and maintain that sort of a distance range. So we'll see, but I agree.
Definitely a different horse this preparation for mine, whether it's just finding the right races or it's improved out of sight. It's absolutely flying, Combella.
It is indeed. Race 6, the Stayers Cup. They went fast here, John. Shameless Miss got the nice tail into the race, or tag into the race, and was just too good. Feel the Rush, what was the story? It saddled, slipped earlier, I think. Yeah, that's what they said. Yep. Saddle slipped back early, so maybe an excuse for it. He got beaten 10.5, that was in the market, so forgive it. But the winner is going quite well and continues to race well, and it's been up for quite a while now, I think, since about January.
Yeah, it's done. They've placed it extremely well. It's one of those typical Waller horses that you wouldn't say it's the most talented horse on earth, but he's picked the right spots for it and managed its rating really well, benchmarked really well, found really nice race for it, kept it ticking along through this whole period. Not many horses have held their form like this horse has during this period, and maybe slowly improving all the way through. And It's won a lot of prize money this prep. I know that, and it's not like I don't know where it ends up. I don't think it gets much better, much further along than this sort of grade, but it doesn't have to either. He's just a little professional that does its job.
Yeah, that was definitely a new peak for it Saturday. So be interesting to see where it goes next. I suppose there's not much room for it, is there, in terms of where to go in these types of races?
It's a bit of that sort of race. If you're going to be forgiving of one horse, it's probably the horse that sat outside the leader. Is it Monreal? It sat outside a fast tempo there and kicked on okay. But as you said, I don't even know where these horses go. But it's probably the one forgive. Put the leader away, battled on quite well and got tired late after sitting outside of fast speed. The rest of them certainly had their chance.
Okay, race 7, the 1888. They went solid tempo here, and the one of the horses managed to get the job done there. Francesco Guardi looks like a new peak for it too from Saturday. Thought was pretty well ridden by Chad Schofield.
Yeah, I don't know what the plan was with this. Is it Thorin, the one that's just been absolutely fired out of the gates here from the wide draw? We see it it looked like Majorati would potentially control this tempo with Bethencourt, and Thorin, I think, had different ideas. Is it Hennessy riding it?
Yeah, it was 1300 up to 1800 too, and yeah, it was Ellen Hennessy.
I just don't like it. Sort of missed the kick too. It's last out of the gates. I know that's a bit of a funny angle, so it might not have been as far back as it looked, but certainly strong intent. You don't see him get ridden out of the gates much harder than that, and for whatever reason, put a lot of speed into the race.
Yeah, unfortunately for me, I was on the second horse, so I couldn't quite get the job done there with Majorati. But anyway, Solar Apex had its chance. Looked like it was going to win there when it peeled out in the straight, and just couldn't finish off really.
And it was another one of the sort of pointers I thought maybe out wide was not super easy to run on, but it definitely had its chance. Like you've seen most horses, even if it's only 2 or 3 wider. Francesco Guardi's, I think, is only third up. It was a good win there at Eagle Farm or last up when it sort of got chopped out in an easier race and James McDonald lifted it. And I think it sort of peaked again here, whereas Majorati's certainly fitter, and I think, probably another 50 metres probably comes back and wins. You're definitely unlucky, but I think it's come back a better horse, Francesco Guardi, and I think it'll continue to race well. It's probably one of my horses to follow out of the meeting. I think had its chance here, no doubt. Perfect ride, everything went to plan, but I think it's got more to come.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there, John. This horse has only had 12 starts now, so it's definitely got more upside, and this is its best prep. I mean, in terms of what it was able to do Saturday relative to its previous form, but 2,000 metres, no issue for it, is it?
Doesn't look like it, especially with that run under its belt now. I think your horse is it's definitely the run of the race, but I think he can go to 2,000 no problem off that, and he looks like he can settle closer too, which is good. Like as he goes up in trip, he'll settle a little bit closer and continue to do the same sort of thing. I think he's a dangerous horse during this winter period.
Yep, agree with you there. Okay, on to race 8, the Civic Stakes, the listed race, which was probably more open handicap standard. They went sort of below average tempo early and sped up a little bit by the time they got to the 600 there on a very good ride by Glynn, where he had an 800 to 400 split of 5.3 lengths above on our numbers. So good Glynn, got the job done for Taxu. Followers, unfortunately for me, I was on Oscar Zulu and should have won the race, I thought, but clearly got held up hopelessly in the home straight. And another horse, I should say, in the race that did a reasonably good job too, that never really got out of its gear, was True Detective. It got held up and couldn't be pushed out at all in the run home. So I thought, but I suppose it's one of those horses, isn't it, True Detective, very hard to catch and get on the right side of. But Oscar Zula's got a little bit more talent and can certainly win races still. But Taxu, good ride.
Yeah, I think I can't really improve upon what you've said. Like he probably even dropped the anchor a little bit too much early, but certainly at least had the awareness to capitalize on it and took off it like now, which is perfect. 800 meters out, and it is a bit of an act of God win. The horse is probably better on wet tracks, but the ride got him home. Yeah, Oscar Zulu was probably a pair or two further back than I thought he'd be too. Coming back in distance, maybe he just lost a bit of that early sharpness, and certainly should have won. Got a nice run through after getting checked, but yeah, it definitely should have won. I didn't mind the run of this horse coming to the middle in the green. First up, Lightning Jack. Not a horse that you can sort of say next start I want to be on it, because it does need things to go its way, but it certainly looks like I think it was its first up run. Has returned.
Third up.
Oh, is it? Sorry. Well, I thought it was first up, so that sort of takes away from it. But it was a good effort closing late in the harder part of the track for me to run on. But I think the race, there's not much in it. None of those horses I want to find with confidence if they're not in the right race next start. Like, I'm not bonusing too many horses out of this race. I think there's not much between them. Yep,
fair enough. The Enigma Hulk got the job done the next, over 1,100 metres. Average tempo early, quickened up by the time they got to the 600 to be above average. Good support late, but a winner too, John.
Yeah, I found the stable, mate. When the money came for Hulk late, I wanted to throw up. And then in the run, I thought, what a genius I am. With they're sort of out the back together here. Irish Angel in the red cap, Hulk in the green. Hulk sort of tracks him everywhere. I thought, oh, well, you're not going to run me down. Mine came out and went puff, and Hulk went to the line under a stranglehold. So they're too good for me, this stable. But this is Hulk, isn't it? He's a bit like that the horse that we talked about, True Detective. He's a very similar version. When he gets things go his way, he looks pretty special. But 8 times out of 10 or 9 times out of 10, he finds a bum and he over races and drives you insane. So what do you do with this race?
Yeah, well, it's one of those races, isn't it? I mean, they tend to take it in turns, and I don't know what you say about the second horse. I mean, 100 to 1 there, running on well there up towards the inside there. So
there's a lot of warning signs about this race, except for the time. The time's good. Other than that, it's it's actually not a bad horse. Sorry, is it called? I should know it. I know it really well. I've backed it a million times. The second horse,
Catsby.
Yeah, so it's an ex-Godolphin horse that actually has got ability. So maybe it's just come back well because the time is good and the horses seem to have, they're opening gaps behind. They look merit in their runs. They look like they're attacking the line. So, I wouldn't be too harsh on the race. Just the winner's sort of hard to catch. And
he's had a few trainers there, Catsby, hasn't it?
Yeah. So well, McFarlane, that whole operation got taken over, and I think he was always the one that he paid sort of 100 for him or whatever, and he always talks now that it's sort of a $200,000 or $300,000 horse that's had not a lot of luck. If you in today's market. You can't. It's hard to buy a horse of this sort of caliber straight from the tried horse sales these days. But he's done a good job.
Indeed. On to the last race, the 1478 it was, yes. Average to below average tempo here, John. Jojo was a man, got the job done again. Both at Park got close, but couldn't quite get it done. Ready to Humble held up. Probably a little bit unlucky, and a number of these horses sort of tended to over race too when the tempo dropped between the 8 and the 4. Well, really the 8 and the 6 and the 8 and the 4 it dropped considerably. So that sort of hurt the chances of some of those horses like Simba and so forth.
Yeah, big anchor drop, not Tim's normal thing either. So certainly, Shizer, had to work early to get to the front, and look at him here. Like that's about as slow as you'll ever see Tim pull a race up. Probably overdid it, if anything. And like you said, it was detrimental to anything midfield or worse. And then they sort of took off late. He's going really well. Jojo was a man. I think he's Johnny on the spot here. I'm very worried about this race, especially when I sort of reviewed it, and the horses that I came up with as horses to follow out of this race were sort of Pandano and Dynamic Impact that are out the back. I think Simba's a much better horse than what it's shown here, but its racing patterns is a problem. It needs favours.
Well, the other thing too is it seems to sort of go well fresh, and maybe 1 or 2 runs, and then sort of tapers off in its preparation in terms of its form. So
Well, it looks like it wants 2,000, but I don't think it is. I think, like you say, it's sharp, fresh, and has a really nice turn of foot. And then it comes here and it looks like it's a grinder that wants further, but it doesn't run further. So he's a bit of a nightmare of a horse to follow.
Yeah, Jojo was a man. Was sort of rates always around about that same sort of number when it is competitive, and certainly got the job done again both at Park. Not sure what to say about it. It's so in and out, that horse. Very difficult to follow. It's probably better up in Queensland than down here, but
very strange placement, isn't it? Like, and he's always well back too. He's always starts sort of thereabouts in the market, considering his form, and he was there to win this race. And sort of, what I don't like about him is what he does with his head. Just gets his head side on. He looks to let down, and all he wants to do is lay out. And yeah, I'd prefer it in easier grade for sure.
Okay, so let's get into horses to follow from the meeting. What do you say, John?
I'm going to steal. I think I've stolen one off you that we didn't mention before. I agree with you. Combella Feast flying, Francesco Guardi flying. I'd rather find these horses that are sort of on the up in their preparations or holding good form during this period than try and sort of speculate too much. And I think Optimo needs to go back in distance and needs a rider change, but it's flying in highway grade. I know you won't go there because you're not a big highway fan. They're my three.
Look, for me, I'm going to say Francesco Guardi. So I agree with you out of that race there. Look, out of the Civic Stakes, I think Oscar Zulu can continue to race well and will certainly pick up a race or so this prep. Can't see any reason why not. They're probably the two for me. Don't really want to suggest anything else. So we'll be stuck with that. The carnival in Queensland's pretty much come to an end. I suppose there's a Sunshine Coast meeting on the weekend. We won't be covering anything, I think, for a while in terms of the rapid fire stuff because there is no group racing to pique our interest. So we'll be having a small hiatus while that happens.
We don't have winter rapid fire where we just pick some races or something. I know Jason's the most keen man in the world to have a chat on Thursdays, but it's completely up to you. I'm happy to do whatever you want.
You never know. We'll reassess. We'll put it to a vote and reassess. And of course, we're sort of now into that winter racing in Sydney, so we'll be resuming normal service there in terms of coverage and focusing on the Sydney stuff. In terms of questions this week, surprisingly, we don't have anything, John. So next week's question of the week winner will pick up $200, so it'll jackpot. Make sure you get your questions in early. You can send them in any time, of course. You can direct message John or myself or email if you prefer to do it that way. But certainly,
I'll do a blast out this week so we get a bit more content to everybody. I think it's not too bad to have a week off it anyway. The last couple of weeks have been very intense. Yeah, very intense.
They have indeed. Okay, guys, thanks very much for your time, and we'll catch you next time.
Get an account with TopSport.
Indeed, if you don't have your account with TopSport, you should. We haven't mentioned them. They are our sponsor, of course. And with New South Wales Racing, the limits are good and they apply from the time they go up. So you can't get a better service than what Tristan offers there at TopSport. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.